The bounty hunters. "You're not gonna make it," Scaly taunts Mustard with a nasty grin on his face. "Well, aren't you a ray of sunshine?" Mustard remarks as the rest of the crew sends up cheers, jeers, and a lot of laughter his way. He had 2 Kutha coins riding on whether he could climb onto the passageway the next level up. The only rule was no axiom, and he was slowly hand-over-handing to the edge in order to climb up to the next level. "You're gonna die!" Scaly's next taunt is in an accent that only he recognizes, but is apparently funny enough to make him snicker as he says it. "I can't die. I'm me. Me!" Mustard replies, hanging on by one arm and thumping himself in the chest a few times before reaching up and hand-over-handing things like monkey bars for a few moments. The undersides of the walkways in Nightside had a lot of reinforcing struts on them that made great handholds. The whole group, Scaly included, were armed to the teeth, not only due to this being a pirate station, but also a bit of a sting operation. Several bounties spotted in the area were for rampant slavers, so each of the men were honey traps as they made a spectacle out of themselves. Mustard reaches the edge of the upper walkway and begins to turn around and swing a bit to the unending calls of fall, 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 courtesy of Scaly, when several arms reach down and grab him even as something is thrown into his face that makes him go limp. "Mustard!" they shout out, and instantly axiom flows fast and hard. They arrive on the next level seconds later as they swing up and scan around, only to see a small air car vanishing around a corner in the distance. "We've got a signal," Bike remarks with his communicator out even as Scaly slithers onto the upper level with them. He then receives a message. "Oh?" And Mustard's still awake. He shook off the poison and is playing possum. "It's go time, boys." "Air farce. The fish bit. I repeat, the fish bit," Pukey says into his own communicator, and a few moments later an open-top air truck swoops over. They climb into the flatbed and hold on even as Scaly slithers into the cabin. "Did we get a look at the getaway vehicle or kidnappers?" Air farce asks, even as he adjusts the screen to track Mustard and then takes off. "Afraid not," Pukey remarks. "I did," Scaly interrupts. "We're all listening, little buddy," Pukey says, and the boy nods. "I'm sure I saw fins along at least 2 of the arms, light green. They might be holed up in the wetworks," Scaly explains, and the rest of the crew looks thoughtful. "Well, shit, looks like we'll be field testing what Franklin sent us then," Pukey remarks. "Maybe, maybe not. They don't seem to have gone too far. Up a few more stories, but otherwise they're still in this part of the station," Air Farce remarks as he taps the screen on the dashboard. He casually weaves around several automated drones that have packages and deliveries, and some of the guys contemplate snatching the smaller ones out of the air. "What do you think are in these things?" Mr. T asks, and Bike leans out a bit with his communicator. There's a beep, and he pulls it back. "That was some lingerie. It's heading to a missed crash about 2 blocks and 3 stories away." Bike reads out, and Mr. T stares at him. He shrugs. "I've been working on my hacking skills. I've put together some nasty programs that get me in easy." "Nice. That should come in handy." Pukey congratulates him. "It's a similar enough algorithm between the drones and the doors and basic terminals around this station. I'll need to set up new code-breaking algorithms every time we end up somewhere new, but we've got a skeleton key for now." Bike explains. Boss man, I think we may have stalkers." J3 notes, looking backwards as he holds a rifle's sight up to his eye as Pukey shuffles up, causing the sniper to hand over the sight and point. "Green-skinned and finned-looking blonde bimbo on an air bike," Pukey remarks before quickly focusing on his communicator. "Species designation BPC, 1100-6, Amera. She launches paralytic darts from under her fingernails, and the fins easily channel axiom hard enough to work as both shields and swords. They're amphibious, and the rest is cultural and religious." Odds she's teamed up with Mustard's new friends? Tang asks as he looks through his own scope. Slim, but not none. Keep your heads on swivels, boys, Pukey remarks. Arrival in 30 seconds. Air Farce remarks, and everyone quickly pulls out their small arms and checks them over. It's an even spread of bangers and ablators, with Pukey pulling out his plasma sword and the hat grinning as he pulls out a rod that extends into a staff with the press of a button. Here we are. Kick some ass. Me and the kid will be ready for a getaway, Air Farce says, and Scaly pulls out a large banger from under his seat with an absolutely manic grin on his face. Tone the psycho down, will ya? Oh, fine. Ruin my fun, will ya? Scaly remarks as Air Farce pulls up to a balcony. Mustard 6 meters straight ahead, meaning next room. Bike, get us in. Pukey orders, and the man quickly climbs onto the balcony and begins hacking into the security system. Seconds pass by, and from below, the Mara that was spotted earlier rises up on her air bike. Was a stripogram ordered? Is Roth about to get a surprise orgy? Because if so, I want in, she says, and the men slowly turn to look at her. What's going on? Our friend's been kidnapped and we've tracked him here, Pukey answers. And how serious are you about getting him back? The Mara asks, and Pukey activates the plasma sword. Ah, if I talk her down, what will you do? We'll be less angry but still out for revenge. Pukey answers as Scaly none too subtly aims his banger right at her. What kind of revenge? She asks as more and more weapons turn in her direction. That depends on her. Pukey answers, and the Mara looks over all of them before slowly lowering away and out of sight. We're in, Bike says as he opens the door without a sound. All right, move people. Assume they know we're coming. Pukey orders, and most of the team rush off the air truck and into the apartment. The first room is mostly clear. Some couches for sitting around and a couple of tables with weapon parts on them. There are some thoughts of snagging them, but first things first, Mustard needs rescue. They boot open the next door and rush in, weapons ready, only to stall out as they find Mustard surrounded by several knocked-out alien women and aggressively Frenching the only one conscious. The other Mara from earlier. He breaks the lip lock and glances to the guys. What took you so long? He asks, even as the guys quickly check the women and start scanning them for bounties. Some of the locals were chatty. That, and it's just rude to cockblock a bro, Pukey remarks as he glances around. There's a few manacles and ropes and such lying around, as well as a great deal of weapons, including several that will get an idiot chucked out the airlock on this station. Roth, why didn't you answer your... Oh wow. The Mara from earlier exclaims, barging in and stopping as she sees Roth in Mustard's arms. Andrea? Roth asks before letting out a soft moan as Mustard's hands wander in the stillness. Aha! We've got pay dirt. This bitch has nearly 2 million on her head for child trafficking. She'll be making up for the annoyance at the kidnapping, Dong remarks as he finishes scanning one of the women. He then immediately pulls out some duct tape and gets to work with it. Wait a minute. Andrea begins before backing down when a small wall of firepower is pointed her way. I'm still trying to figure out how you did this. Not that I'm complaining. Any plan that ends with me being given sweet, sweet love from a sexy Tret's a good plan, Roth mutters. We're that good. Now then, Mustard says before kissing Roth again. This has been fun, but it's time for me to go. Although, if you're looking for a better team, here's my number. Bring your cousin. You'd both look good under the sheets. The guys glance at each other at just how flirty the man's being, but decide to put it aside for now as they haul out their prize. The rest of the women are scanned, including Roth, who's openly groped as a distraction from her reading the number that Mustard had tucked into her cleavage, and the intimidated Andrea, but there are no more bounties in this little gang. Come on, Mustard. Time to go. Pukey remarks, and Mustard lets Roth down with a last kiss on the lips before blowing one to Andrea on the way out. He climbs out and takes his place near the tied-up bounty. Airfarce quickly gets them moving. After about a block, Pukey turns to regard him. "Mind explaining what all that was about, soldier?" "Their knockout powder wasn't enough to do more than make my head swim for a bit. They got me on the exhale and I held my breath to get around it. I was able to get some of it and get the girls with it, but she managed to swat it away when I tried to knock her out after the others. A bit of wrestling and both of us had our hands occupied, so I improvised and she really enjoyed it." Mustard explains. "She wasn't the only one." The Hat remarks, and there's some snorts and chuckles around the truck. "All right, boys, we're coming in for a landing, 30 seconds till touchdown," Airfarce says over his shoulder, and there are thumbs up all around. "Is it always this easy?" Scaly asks somewhat curiously. "I mean, it was all already done and over with by the time you got in. Is bounty hunting really this easy? Bear in mind that we're all massively trained and overly paranoid soldiers. Our daily PT and weapon drills tie into this, as do our specialities. So it looks easy, but that's because we're more than ready for this level of stuff," Pukey states, and Mustard nods before glancing up. "Not to mention we got lucky. If they caught me on the inhale, then there are good odds I'd have been knocked out. And if he was knocked out, then we'd have gotten into a firefight and possibly a hostage situation. You might have had to help fight off that Mara on an air bike. We try not to rely on luck, but unfortunately luck is just something that ties into everything no matter how much or how little you want it to," Airfarce explains as he lands the truck. "All right, boys, get a move on. I need to go park this bitch properly." "I thought you loved air cars," Scaly remarks as he slithers out and gets into a defensive position to provide a lookout for the guys as they've been training him. "When they don't handle like cans with an engine badly welded on, I love them. This one is a piece of shit. Engines, control cab with a flatbed, and that's it. It's a piece of junk. I'll need to get this thing tuned up at the very least if we're going to keep using it." "That'll be a side project. Get moving," Pukey orders as they haul off their prize and begin carrying her towards the docked chainbreaker. "Yes, sir," Airfarce answers before pulling away to one of their rented parking spots. "The Void?" a passing Horchka asks in bafflement as she watches them go by while clearly kidnapping someone. "She tried kidnapping me," Mustard remarks with a grin, and the Horchka snorts in amusement and walks away laughing. "Step on it. The sooner we put this bitch in stasis, the sooner we can get some decent drinks," Pukey declares, and the whole group starts hustling.